Welcome to NASDAQ Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the NASDAQ market site, we have Dr. Severence MacLaughlin, United Nations and WHO advisor on AI and data, as well as Delorean AI. And we have Garen Angel, U.S. Senate advisor on AI and workforce and CEO of PharmED, as well as Ron Early, CEO of Grey Wolf Investing. We're here to discuss how policy, technology, and capital flow are shaping the next decade of economic opportunity in today's rapidly evolving financial business landscape. Market-driven policies, capital access, economic shifts are really reshaping how entrepreneurs are securing funding, going to other business lines, and technology, sustainability, and risk management are the key factors when it comes to investment strategy and business growth. It is great to have everyone with us. Thanks so much for joining us on Trade Talk, certainly a topic near and dear to our core coverage. And Dr. MacLaughlin, if you can give us an overview of where you sit within this space.
Sure. I'm currently the CEO and founder of Delorean AI. In that role, we have a number of products. We're productized now in healthcare, so our medical AI. We also deal with the financial services through Severence AI in terms of predicting those trends and being able to trade upon them. And then through that, we also advise a number of foreign and domestic governments, such as the UN and WHO, on the utilization of AI in chronic disease management.
Yeah, which is interesting because, Garen, we have multiple industries that are represented here. Tell us more about PharmED.
Yeah, so at PharmEd, what we do is we're impacting the next generation of innovators. And we do it using AI and large data sets. Really, project-based learning is how children retain that knowledge. So we're getting them to mastery of subject matter and teaching financial literacy through cucumbers.
Well, look, big advocate of financial literacy and civics, by the way, so I love this story. And Ron, tell us about the work that you're doing at Grey Wolf. I would imagine this is more on the investing side.
It is. We offer alternative investments for larger or smaller investors that want to come in on something that cash flows monthly, it compounds annually, and one of the largest vehicles that are available to us here in the US, it's Amazon.com. And we also offer out a brand practice for people that are trying to scale either domestic or international brands, trying to move more into the domestic side, that aren't getting the notoriety that a brand might deserve, opposed to other ones that know how to navigate the web space.
What industries, Ron, do you see having the biggest impact or getting the biggest impact from the economic shifts that we've experienced, whether it's from a technical perspective, policy perspective? Where are those opportunities?
It's really interesting that you bring that up. We're kind of going through that right now with the geopolitical shift with the tariffs that are currently being implemented. Luckily, in the investment space, you want to be diversified in your portfolio. So back to the international side and the domestic side, luckily we're able to navigate while we circumvent how we're going to help those brands scale that are internationally and deal with those tariff trades, so it's not completely or economically shutting down the people that are investing in those products. We can navigate them to the domestic side specifically. But in the notoriety that we can give to the brand recognition to some of these brands, back to the point of getting them the recognition that they deserve, opposed to people that don't know how to navigate the space, we can kind of offset those costs just because we're able to do more order quantity and more order volume through the wholesale side than just your traditional retail.
Yeah, and Garen, I think it's interesting how the work that you're doing, you're bridging the financial gap, the technology gap, and you're making it more tangible, which is not necessarily the trend these days when everything is so gamified.
Yeah, I actually see this as the trend. I think AI is going to disrupt the software industry without the addition of hardware. So I think that you're going to have businesses that have some type of device and then AI on top of it to have a moat, because programming is just getting too easy with the future. So that's really what I'm pushing people into is how do you innovate real solutions that are beyond software?
Yeah, well,
one thing on that, Gary, is the hardware portion. As we grow with AI and the programming, we do need to look about server capability and growing that, and the hardware in terms of Samba Nova or NVIDIA or Facebook. So that is a component, and then the rare earth minerals and how that goes into the supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, you are seeing that pendulum come back to the middle where it's not so software focused. And we had a professor who was either from MIT or Harvard come on, and all of his comp sci graduate students, they want to know software, software, software. And he's like, you can't do this until you understand what the hardware delivers.
And also the mathematics. One of the things that we're trying with the talent here is that we get kids that are coming out of college and they understand the programming aspect, but they don't understand the math behind that, and that's lacking. And if you don't have that, you can't actually move up the chain or whatnot.
Yeah, and that goes even before STEM,
Yeah.
right? Financial literacy is what, not to even just closing the wealth gap, but it offers opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, so, and again, I push towards agriculture because ag is the original STEM. And
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good
it is where we need to steer these learners for career readiness. You look at, for example, our food supply. Currently, our food supply, all of the food for New York City is grown hundreds of miles away, in many cases, thousands of miles away, and some of it international. That, as the cost of power and the cost of compute continue to fall and robots start to enter the workplace, controlled environment agriculture, where we focus on nutrient density rather than getting a fruit or a vegetable to the shelf that's ripe, is going to start to be the focus. And when we start to do that, we'll get better healthcare, we'll get better wellness, and that's really where we're headed. So in my passion and my outlook is we need to prepare these learners for the career where it's going to be as they graduate, and step into the data-driven decision making, step into the analytics, and understand how it all works, and just program a better future.
Yeah, and Ron, you're actually using data-driven financial analytics to pick out what areas you want to invest in.
Well, correct. I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing about utilizing AI right now is everything is so data-driven. I can recognize buying patterns. I can see what's happening through seasonal markets. I can forecast what I need to put money into that is either shaping that brand that we had talked about previously and how I'm circumnavigating that, or what's buying best for the current investors that are inside Grey Wolf Investing.
Yeah, well, okay, so Dr. MacLaughlin, one of my favorite questions, the regulatory considerations, right? When you have AI-driven financial tools and global economic stability, there could potentially be a lot of impacts when it's AI-driven.
So absolutely, and I think the take-home message I'd like your viewers to understand is, for at least the U.S., is, let's slow down the rush to get to the regulatory compliance there. And I think there's a couple boxes of that. I think Europe raced to the bottom of the barrel, and they have that. And I think that's not only causing challenges for their AI industry to grow, or intelligence artificial, but also for our tech companies to be able to move into that. And I don't think that Congress is getting the right people in front of them to actually talk about that. Now, when you go to AI and ethics, there's the data portion of it. And I don't believe AI itself can be biased. I think that there's, you have to look back at your data, and that's regulated. But now if you're looking at, in terms of other parts of protected classes or whatnot, that's something that we have to think about. But then there's regulatory compliance when you look at healthcare and whatnot, where we have the tools. Mm-hmm. So the big conversation on the Hill now is Medicare, right? And Medicaid that is on the chopping block. And I think you can really decrease that cost and actually increase health outcomes if AI is appropriately applied. And just if I can give you one example, right? Dialysis patients, it costs about $6 billion to run dialysis. It costs another $6 billion, $12 billion to put them in hospitals because they go. If we were able to reduce that by 27%, and that's what we do at smart companies, you're saving double that, right? So like we could work smarter in Medicaid and Medicare, save the money, but also increase our health outcomes and number of hugs with the family members.
Yeah, I know, and that's the important thing at the end of the day. But I feel like we've been talking about efficiency in healthcare forever.
But you know why? And the reason is, is the insurance companies, right? CMS, or the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, are great at the carrot, right? What payment options, Medicare Advantage or whatnot, but they're really bad at the stick. If they were using AI to hold doctors and the insurance companies accountable, we wouldn't be in this situation, right? What doctors are giving, 2 visits and the outcome versus 4 visits, right? Those 4 cost. And then Medicare Advantage at United or Anthem, right? They're spending it on things that are not achieving the objectives that we need them to.
Yeah, it just seems like there's so many layers there. And these kind of technologies, whether it's AI, blockchain, they are the technologies that allow for accountability, transparency, traceability. I mean, healthcare seems like the most obvious choice when you want to have a more efficient system.
Yeah, I've been involved in the healthcare industry for over 20 years now with innovations, and the challenges is around regulation, right? The technology is there to really extend longevity, and we're almost at a point now where for every day you live, you get an additional day. Unfortunately, it's cost prohibitive for most people to have that type of care, and it's changing though, and it really comes down to our food supply at the most basic of sense. The easiest way to fix our healthcare system is to put more nutritious food on the plate, better fibers, better molecules for the body. And
That's expensive.
It is.
it
can
is
be.
until the cost of compute and robots and power. Solar power is going to bring the cost of power close to zero. The cost of compute is already pretty close to zero. Robots will bring the cost of labor to a fixed cost, which essentially is zero, right? So when you start to get down to a deflationary time period, you're going to see a lot of this start to reel in a big way.
Yeah. Well, all right, let me ask you this question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just disagree on and respectfully on a couple points. One is I don't think the tech is there. Like we're seeing a huge decrease in hospitalizations because of AI in the kidney space. In cardiac space, we are now able to detect a heart attack 3 weeks out. So instead of that person driving from a rural area where the farming's happening to, let's say, Columbus to Augusta and has a heart attack, very low survivability. But if you know that 3 weeks beforehand, for the insurance company, you can put them for a stent, right? And the compute power, compute power right now is going up for our industry, right? And so energy consumption is now competing, that energy consumption is now competing with agriculture and also with New York City. So where do you put these server farms and then solar? I mean, they're now looking for buildings that have enough for the Tesla solar panels or whatnot. But there's a lot of challenges that are associated with getting to the place where I think we're going.
Yeah. So Ron, this is a question I want to pose to you.
Yeah.
With government regulations, how will that impact financial strategies and business models? Because you can see, we're sitting here talking about how it's going to be more efficient and affordable and scalable.
Right.
When in today's current environment, kind of sounds like there's a number of outliers, and we're worried about tariffs and increasing costs.
Well, everything does in due time. I mean, I have seen, and the reason why I have focused so much on this space, and it's important that we stay in our lane, is I'm paying attention to all markets, but I am really dialing in on this one because it has had zero retraction in the last 25 years. I need some kind of pullback, some kind of correctional market adjustment. And it's a matter of just kind of weaving my way through what is being done currently through government strategies. I think it's a great thing that we're pulling things more, less international, more domesticated, so we can provide more jobs for people that are inside the states. But at the same time, there's so much work being done internationally. Yes, absolutely, it's going to affect other companies that are being brought about.
Well,
But
I'm glad you brought up the point of exercising some patience as well. And
Right.
it is encouraging to have conversations that are forward-looking, because at some point there will be opportunities. I mean, we're not going to be in this environment, in perpetuity.
Without a doubt. And I think that there is maybe some confusion, specifically because of what cryptocurrency has done specifically in the market. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing in how fast money is being transmitted. I think it's getting rid of, I'll put my foot in my mouth here, but I think getting rid of the 3 to 5 business days for money to go from point A to point B is a fantastic thing. Mm-hmm. However, it is set up for some opportunities for people to understand what great returns are in a traditional investment as well.
Yeah. Well, I also think it could set up the infrastructure as
Right.
global capital markets continue to digitize. And sometimes we think very Western or US centric, where, what kind of money can I make with crypto, or how can I hedge, and so forth. Meanwhile, these technologies are being applied to microeconomies globally,
Right.
where they're starting to see growth in alternative forms of capital formation.
Correct. And I think it's a good thing too, again, that we have that open and moving. I just think that to your point originally about being patient with corrections, that might have set us up for actually not being as patient for those corrections to take place.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that it's currently we're looking at, like working through like what it's impacting specifically in our market, but also it's on a time saver, because without that AI that we just moved away from, I have specifically seen what is taken from data transmission, from what's going out from distribution, manufacturer, straight to wholesale, out to who is actually consuming the consumables in the product, moving from a 14-day analytic down to 4 days. It has saved us 71% time. So if that offset on a 20% tariff is coming in versus a turnaround time on what data output could be given to what performs the best as a product, maybe that time could save on that deficit and that percentage.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to look at it, but then also, you have the ability to look at other business lines or improve
Correct.
R&D or employment training. It only helps to, think about it longer term. What does this mean for your workforce? What does it mean in terms of, acquiring other business lines and growing in other areas as well?
Correct.
Yeah, so let me, Garen, when it comes to education, are public-private partnerships part of this equation as well? Why isn't this in every school?
Yeah, and we're working on that. We launched this product into schools this August, and next year we'll be in 8 states. So I do expect it'll be in every school. pretty soon. As a child, we owned some of the first Apple franchises, and we installed the first computer labs around the state of Florida. I see this as the next thing. It's a computer that grows food for a classroom, and it's necessary. Ag education has been massively under-indexed in today's curriculum. If you can teach a child to grow a plant, you can teach a child to grow themselves, you can teach a child to become a leader. And that's what we need to do. We need to get to a spot where we're growing more students from learners to leaders to actually caring and wanting everybody around them to succeed with love in their heart. And it's coming.
Because you
It's
take
coming.
ownership
Right.
over it, right? What was it? When we were in high school for home ec, you had to carry that sack of flour around, pretend it was your baby.
They want to get in the classroom. That's the biggest thing that we do with our product is when the child sees that plant growing and they're responsible for that plant, the first thing they want to do is open the door and look at their plant daily. So we've transformed the mindset from a learner who has anxiety about entering a classroom, let's be realistic, all of us did, to a child that can't wait to get in the classroom because they want to see growth. And now they're entering the classroom in the right mindset for their own personal growth.
They're vested.
Yeah, I mean, we also have healthcare, good things as well. It might help with anxiety and mental health and so forth, which obviously impacts the healthcare industry
Well,
as well. So there's cross-pollination there, pardon the pun.
No, I mean, the funny that you bring that up. I was never a big, I shouldn't say this, believer in the mental health and the support of it, but the client asked us to do this, and the amount that mental health plays into all the other disease states is huge. And that really is, now I'm a believer, right? That we need to take care of that primarily. So, medication adherence, if you're feeling down or whatnot, you're not taking your pills, or you're not going to the doctor, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not eating right. So huge opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, part of it as well is technology,
Yeah.
right? There's more isolation among younger demographics, which I don't have the exact data in front of me right now, but we're pretty familiar with those studies where it's more isolated, and because it's very point and click, the ownership or being responsible for something has been mitigated.
Have you read, there's a book by Baroness Susan Springfield in the UK where she looked at neural pruning in pre and post iPhone or pre and post digital, and the actual pruning of the neurons in the brain are actually completely different, or different.
Yeah, I cited a study in my grad work, and it looked at the years from 2012 to 2022 with suicide rates, and what does that correlate to? The use of social media. And
Right.
you can, there's a number of different studies that show relatively the same kind of information. So I think we're at this point now where we have to leverage all of this technology and bring it back to the human and what we can do for good.
I would agree, especially with being a father of 3 that are so young and they're so consumed in this technological age and everything is social media driven. It's, I don't even want to say it's paralysis by analysis. It is because you're taking in so much, but there's so much comparison that's going on in the back end. They don't have a way to express themselves, so it's just all computing in their head, and you don't know how they're feeling. They don't want to put that out. I think that in the meantime, with trying to source that out, we should have an outlet for them. I just don't think it's been created yet.
But I do believe the pendulum does come back. Whether you're talking about politics, social issues, the market, economics, at some point that equilibrium is found.
That's the whole process that we're in right now, right? We're in a Phoenix period. The new administration is burning it down and starting over. And it's probably a good time for us to do it, and especially like I look at the Department of Education, the shift there. We have to go from memorization to mastery.
Yeah.
And the only way that's ever going to happen is by children getting involved and engaged. And it has to start in kindergarten. And we bring these children up in a way where they have so much overexcitement nowadays that they really need a tangible education, that their hands are getting dirty. They're understanding things on a base level. We need more engineers. We need more STEM careers. That is, without a doubt, the future of.
I would agree.
That's viable.
I think starting it early too is very important because repetition creates habit.
It certainly does. We need civics back in the classroom. That's a whole conversation for another time. I'm going to wrap it up with you here, Dr. MacLaughlin. I think, on a positive note, leveraging all of these technologies and being more efficient might allow us the time to come back.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's a positive look at it, right? And having your work being, using whatever AI that's there to create your presentations or write your emails, you're getting time back. But then I also look back in 2000 when I was in college and the computer came out, and there's still the same amount of work that you had to get through to. So.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the long term. Appreciate all of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at NASDAQ.